Well, good morning. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says Global South is ready to take big responsibility on global issues. He says 2 summits in a year echo call for autonomy and global influence. First consignment of fuel entered Gaza from Egypt after Israel agreed to allow limited deliveries to end communications blackout. Finland closes Russia border posts to stem migrant inflow. And the International Court of Justice orders Azerbaijan to ensure the safety of Nagorno-Karabakh people. Well, news in detail now. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says Global South is ready to take big responsibilities on global issues. And speaking at the concluding leaders session of the second Voice of Global South Summit in New Delhi, PM Modi said 2 summits of the Global South in a year send a big message to the world that the Global South wants its voice should be heard on global governance. Listen.
एक साल के भीतर ग्लोबल साउथ की 2 समिट होना और उसमें बड़ी संख्या में आप सभी का जुड़ना अपने आप में दुनिया के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा मैसेज है। ये मैसेज है कि ग्लोबल साउथ अपनी ऑटोनॉमी चाहता है। ये मैसेज है कि ग्लोबल साउथ ग्लोबल गवर्नेंस में अपनी आवाज चाहता है। ये मैसेज है कि ग्लोबल साउथ वैश्विक मामलों में बड़ी जिम्मेदारी लेने के लिए तैयार है। एक्सेलेंसी, आज इस समिट ने हमें एक बार फिर अपनी साझा अपेक्षाओं और आकांक्षाओं पर चर्चा करने का अवसर दिया है।
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also spoken about the environment conservation. He stressed on the need to make environment justice, shared responsibility and strength the base of climate action. He also emphasized that Global South should keep them away from trap of debt to keep their sovereignty.
डेवलपमेंट फाइनेंस के लिए हम कंसल्टेटिव, डिमांड ड्रिवन और पीपल सेंट्रिक प्रयासों को प्राथमिकता देते हैं। ये अनिवार्य है कि ग्लोबल साउथ के देश डेट ट्रैप में न फंसे, किसी भी देश की संप्रभुता कमजोर न हो।
Indian Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Quatra, speaking at a media briefing on Friday, talked about the second Voice of the Global South Summit. He said that the second edition of the summit picked up the momentum of the first edition.
Building on the momentum of the achievements of the first Global South Summit with the strong leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, it was decided to hold this second summit, Voice of Global South Summit today. The meeting, the summit, like the first summit, had leader sessions, the inaugural and the concluding sessions, and also the 8 ministerial sessions, which included 2 sessions of the foreign ministers, one devoted to the larger developments around the world and how they impact Global South, and second more on developmental agenda of the Global South. There were also 1 ministerial sessions each of education, finance, environment, energy, health and commerce.
Update now on Israel-Hamas conflict. The first consignment of fuel entered Gaza from Egypt late on Friday after Israel agreed to a U.S. request to allow limited deliveries to end a communications blackout that has halted aid convoys for 2 days. The U.S. government has said the agreement amounts to around 140,000 litres every 2 days, 120,000 of which will be used to fuel aid vehicles and other humanitarian efforts, with the remainder to power communication networks. Meanwhile, telecom services have been partially restored in Gaza after the entry of a limited quantity of fuel through UNRWA. Earlier, Israel's war cabinet agrees regular supply of fuel into Gaza. The cabinet has agreed to allow 140,000 litres of fuel into Gaza every 2 days after a request from Washington amid acute shortages that threatened aid deliveries and communications in Gaza. Earlier, Israel said it had agreed to allow 2 fuel tankers a day into the territory. The agreement also outlines that a further 20,000 litres would be allowed to power the telecom companies to prevent further blackouts.
The War Management Cabinet responded to a special request by the United States to provide 2 tankers a day for the wastewater treatment facilities in the Gaza Strip, which are facing collapse due to the lack of electricity and the lack of ability to operate the sewage and water systems operated by UNRWA.
An Israeli PM's national advisor also said that Israel would not agree to a ceasefire in Gaza until a significant number of hostages held by Hamas are released.
Only when a large number of our hostages are released, we will agree to a ceasefire, which will be limited and short because we will then continue towards achieving our battle goals.
And United Nations officials are warning hospitals are at crisis point in Gaza. Briefers told a UN General Assembly meeting on Friday that there is a little no medical care available in northern Gaza. According to officials in Gaza, more than 11,000 people have died since conflict began 6 weeks ago after a surprise attack on Israel by Hamas. DD India's Sally Patterson reports.
The Gaza Health Ministry says more than 50 patients, including infants, died at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital due to power and oxygen shortages in recent days. The World Health Organization warned of the dire conditions for women in Gaza, up to 200 per day, giving birth in what they describe as the worst imaginable conditions, many with no anesthetic. Israel's military has raided the hospital, saying it found weapons Hamas was storing and military gear in the complex. It accuses Hamas of using civilians as human shields. UN briefers say more than 41,000 houses have been destroyed or severely damaged since fighting began. And more than 1.5 million Gazans are estimated to be internally displaced. UN Relief Chief Martin Griffiths said across Gaza, but particularly in the north, food and water supplies are running perilously low. This comes as Israel announced it has agreed to allow 140,000 litres of fuel into Gaza every 2 days, following a request from Washington. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
And Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan met with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Friday, where discussion on the Israel-Hamas conflict took the center stage. Both the leaders were meeting in hopes to find common ground on trade, migration and defense, despite views that are far apart on ongoing crisis in Ukraine and Israel. During a joint press conference, German Chancellor showed his support to Israel and said that Israel has a right to self-defense.
Weil es unsere Nachbarregion ist, kann das, was dort geschieht.
Israel has a right to self-defense. It was a terrible, brutal attack carried out by Hamas on children, on the elderly, on peace activists, on those who have campaigned for reconciliation between Israel and the citizens of Gaza. For example, on young people celebrating. And that is why it is unacceptable that there is still a great danger of rockets being fired at Israel. And that is what the right of self-defense is all about. At the same time, it is of course important to use every opportunity to reduce the number of civilian casualties, and to bear this in mind. In everything we do, we should act accordingly.
2016 eine
while Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan called for humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza.
Boşta olsak bu kadar rahat konuşamayız.
We also need to discuss another important point. How can we solve the problem? In other words, a humanitarian ceasefire. To what extent can Turkey make a contribution? Can Germany make a contribution? And how can we take these steps together? That is important now. And are we prepared to do this or not?
Ama bütün bunların yanı
The United States announced new sanctions against Kataib Said al-Shuhada and its Secretary General Hashim Finyan Rahim al-Saraji, designating them as a specially designated global terrorist. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in a statement said that KSS terrorist activity has threatened the lives of both U.S. and global coalition to defeat ISIS personnel in Iraq and Syria. 6 individuals affiliated with Kataib Hezbollah group have been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department. Now, the International Court of Justice has ordered Azerbaijan to let ethnic Armenians who fled the Nagorno-Karabakh region in September return and ensure the safety of the remaining Armenians in the enclave. However, Azerbaijan's foreign ministry says it has already pledged to ensure all residents' safety and security regardless of their origin, and also that it has not forced the ethnic Armenians to leave Karabakh. The measures are part of 2 competing legal disputes between Armenia and Azerbaijan before the ICJ. Both states have accused each other of violating a UN anti-discrimination treaty. Moving on, Ukraine and the United States will hold a special military industry conference in December. Kiev is ramping up efforts to produce its own weapons amid concerns that supplies from the West might be faltering. In his evening address, Zelensky said Kyiv and Washington were actively progressing on the joint arms production issue.
Детально обговорили реалізацію української ракетної програми, яка була розпочата.
During my visit to Washington, President Biden and I reached specific agreements on actions we can take together. This will undoubtedly strengthen both Americans and Ukrainians as well as our partners. Collaborative production always strengthens. In December of this year, a special conference will take place, bringing together Ukrainian and American industries, government officials, and other state actors, all those involved in organizing our defense.
Ukrainian frontline medics at a stabilization point in Donetsk region provide the first treatment for wounded soldiers. The flow of patients is severely testing the team. Deployed with 47 separate mechanized brigade, the medics says there are not enough trained medics, including trauma specialists, to cope with the workload.
We manage here at our stabilization point, but when there is a huge influx of wounded, the work is very intense. All staff are involved. So much depends on the volunteers. Medical supplies are provided by the brigade, but a huge part of all we have has been supplied by volunteers. Things would be very difficult without them.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Friday that Russia's economic growth was set to exceed 3% in 2023, slightly better than previous official forecast. Russia's economy shrank 2.1% in 2022 as the West imposed sweeping sanctions against Russia over conflict in Ukraine. Last month, the central bank estimated 2023 GDP growth at 2.2 to 2.7%.
The chairman of the government has reported that for the last month, the economic growth was 5.5% of GDP. By the end of the year, it will be over 3%. We carefully said this all the time. It will be 3.7%, 2.5%, 2.8%. Now we confidently say it will be over 3%.
All right, time now for a very short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. US officially transfers APEC chairmanship to Peru. Spain's socialist leader Pedro Sanchez sworn in as Prime Minister for another term. And 6.7 magnitude earthquake strikes Philippines. 6 die, 2 missing.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Changemakers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. US President Joe Biden officially transfers the chairmanship of Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation to Peruvian counterpart Dina Boluarte on Friday. Biden highlighted progress on lessening the impact of climate change and US investment in Asian economies as a week-long Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit concluded in San Francisco. The summit, however, failed to provide a final agreement on the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, a US-led effort which includes India as a partner. DD India correspondent Ira Spitza has more.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit has wrapped up here in San Francisco. More than a dozen leaders from around the world descending on this city for the annual event. And one of the final public events here was U.S. President Joe Biden passing the ceremonial torch to the country of Peru, who will be the APEC host next year. Now, India is not a member of APEC, but was invited as a guest economy and took part in several APEC events led by the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Piyush Goyal. India was also here to continue the negotiations on an agreement called the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or IPEF, that it is an arrangement between 14 economies, most but not all of whom are in APEC, in which India is also a part of. So the United States had hoped to finish this APEC event with a big announcement of an agreement on that framework. However, in the end, they could not come to a consensus on the trade portion of that, with some concerns reportedly from the U.S. side about labor and environmental standards for that agreement. So work will continue into the next year on that Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. But the other big story, of course, for the week was that meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Joe Biden on the sidelines of APEC. That is a tense relationship over the past year, but both leaders came out of that meeting pledging to try to strengthen ties and did agree to resume military-to-military communications. But we'll have to see if indeed that relationship, which has been tense, will improve in any way over the next year, as some here has hoped, because of course those two economies, the largest economies in the world, have a tremendous influence over the APEC summit in general. Reporting in San Francisco, Ira Spitzer for DD India.
In Finland ordered the closure of 4 border crossings with Russia as the government sought to stem an influx of asylum seekers that it says was caused by Moscow. The Finnish border guards said that barriers would be put up at 4 out of 9 border crossings with Russia at Valima, Nuijama, Imatra and Nirala in its southeast, and it will remain closed for all traffic until February 18 next year. The government has accused Moscow of sending migrants to the crossings to retaliate for its decision to boost defense cooperation with the US. According to the border guard, about 300 asylum seekers have entered Finland this week, most of whom are from Iraq, Yemen, Somalia and Syria. On the other hand, the Kremlin said that Finland is making a big mistake and that the move will destroy their bilateral relations. Pedro Sanchez has been sworn in for a new term as Spain's Prime Minister in a ceremony at a royal palace in Madrid. To clinch his fresh mandate, Sanchez was forced to make a controversial deal with Catalan separatist parties, sparking vast protests in Spanish cities. DD India's Giles Gibson reports.
This was the final ceremonial step for Pedro Sanchez after weeks of tense negotiations going on behind the scenes to try to clinch this fresh mandate as Spanish Prime Minister. What we saw at the Zarzuela Royal Palace in central Madrid was Pedro Sanchez swearing an oath of office and then shaking the hand and posing for some photographs with Spain's King Felipe. Now, this fresh mandate was secured by Sanchez in a vote in the Spanish Parliament on Thursday, and he was able to get over the line due to support, of course, from his own Socialist Party, as well as the left-wing grouping Sumar, and crucially, 2 Catalan separatist parties. Now, the price of their support in that vote was a draft bill that's been put forward which would give amnesty to hundreds of people who could face prosecution for their role in efforts to push for independence for the region of Catalonia. Now, this draft bill has been widely condemned by opposition parties. For example, there's been some very strong words from Alberto Núñez Feijóo, who is the leader of the Partido Popular, or the People's Party, and who was Sanchez's main rival to become Spanish Prime Minister during the elections that we saw over the course of the summer. Feijóo saying that Sanchez is guilty of pathological ambition in making this deal with these 2 Catalan separatist parties. Since that legislation was announced, we've also seen rolling protests on the streets of Spanish cities, with thousands of people coming out onto the streets of not just the capital, Madrid, but also other cities, including Seville and Malaga. And what we are expecting over the course of the coming weeks is that as Sanchez tries to get this draft legislation approved by Parliament, that those protests will only intensify. Giles Gibson in Rome, reporting for DD India.
And a United States lawmaker could be thrown out of Congress in coming weeks after he was hit by a resolution on Friday to expel him. A report by the bipartisan House of Representatives Ethics Committee investigating George Santos' conduct details substantial evidence showing the first-term congressman violated federal criminal laws. DD India's Benji Hire has more.
At nearly every opportunity, George Santos placed his desire for private gain above his duty to uphold the Constitution, the law and ethical principles, this report reads. Now, a growing number of his colleagues who opposed a previous effort to boot him from office say they will support his ousting if they get a chance to vote on it again. One representative arguing the New York congressman is, quote, unfit to serve. That change of opinion follows damning proof that Santos blatantly stole from his own campaign, spending the money on Botox treatments, luxury fashion brands, trips to Las Vegas, even purchases from the adult content site OnlyFans. His removal would bookend a remarkable, often mystifying, short stint in Congress. He'd become the 6th lawmaker ever to be dismissed from the House, the first without having been convicted. Mr. Santos has already been indicted on charges of conspiracy, false statements, identity theft and credit card fraud. He pleaded not guilty last month to an array of corruption charges and called this report a politicised smear. Santos, who's a self-confessed terrible liar, who has in the past admitted to making up details about his upbringing and his education, says in light of this probe, he won't seek a second term or run for re-election next November. But he's refused to step down before then. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
All right, Liberia President George Weah on Friday conceded election defeat to opposition leader Joseph Boakai after a tight race. This ends Weah's presidency, which was marred with graft allegations and economic downturn. Boakai, a former vice president who lost to Weah in the 2017 election, led with 50.9% of the vote over Weah's 49.1%. With nearly all the votes counted, the country's elections commission said on Friday. Weah's concession paves the way for Liberia's second democratic transfer of power in over 7 decades. The first was when Weah swept to power 6 years ago. Now, UN Human Rights is closely monitoring the ongoing conflict between Myanmar's military government and the anti-military armed groups. Several hundred soldiers have also reportedly chosen to lay down their weapons, and thousands of people from Myanmar are fleeing to take refuge from the fighting. Addressing a press conference, UN Human Rights spokesperson said that all parties should strictly respect international human rights law, particularly to protect the civilians.
It is essential that all those captured are treated humanely. Reprisals are absolutely forbidden. Individual soldiers are not collectively responsible for crimes and human rights violations that have been committed by the military. Amidst rapidly changing circumstances on the ground, it is imperative that all parties strictly respect international human rights law and international humanitarian law, particularly to protect civilians.
Gunfire erupted on Friday in the lobby of New Hampshire Psychiatric Hospital in the United States. According to the state police, the threat was neutralized and the suspect was killed. New Hampshire State Police initially had reported multiple victims from the shooting, but State Police Colonel Mark Hall later told reporters that the shooting was confined to the lobby area of the facility and that all patients are safe.
Today, an active shooter situation occurred at the New Hampshire State Hospital and was contained to the front lobby. There is no active shooter threat to the public. The scene remains active as one suspicious vehicle has been located. The suspect in this situation is deceased. All patients are safe, and we are asking people to avoid the area as the investigation continues.
Dozens of Venezuelan migrants take temporary shelter in camps under Mexico City roadway bridge, waiting for a permission to continue their journey to the US-Mexico border. Many migrants are in search for a makeshift accommodation before resuming their path to the US. The migrants are making appointments through the US government's app to request for asylum. Many of these migrants are fleeing poverty and political instability in their homelands. A magnitude 6.7 earthquake struck the southern Philippines on Friday, killing at least 6 while injuring dozens and damaging buildings. Local disaster officials say search operation is going on for 2 other missing people. The offshore quake struck off Mindanao Island on Friday afternoon at a depth of 60 kilometers. The Philippines lies within the Pacific Ring of Fire, where volcanic activity and earthquakes are common. All right, time now for another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Efforts to evacuate trapped construction workers intensify. Khadi India Pavilion inaugurated at India International Trade Fair. And Chhath Puja festival being celebrated with religious fervor. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan and a recap of what we have done so far. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says Global South is ready to take big responsibility on global issues. He says 2 summits in a year echo call for autonomy and global influence. First consignment of fuel entered Gaza from Egypt after Israel agreed to allow limited deliveries to end communications blackout. Finland closes Russia border post to stem migrant inflow. And the International Court of Justice orders Azerbaijan to ensure the safety of Nagorno-Karabakh people. India's President Draupadi Murmu inaugurated the 2-day international conference cum exhibition on aerospace and aviation in 2047 in New Delhi on Saturday. The conference is being organized by the Aeronautical Society of India at Yashobhumi Convention Centre to commemorate 75 years of excellence of the AISI. The inaugural session includes release of compendium on 75 years of India's aviation journey. The event will showcase achievements, technological advancements and the role of great visionaries. And 1,500 delegates are attending the event, including dignitaries, international experts, scientists, students and academia. About 200 industries and micro, small and medium enterprises, including more than 75 startups, will participate in the event. The 2-day conference will consist of technical sessions with industry experts and scientists. The event will also feature a startup challenge where finalists will present their innovative ideas and products for India's aerospace growth by 2047. Moving further, India's Khadi and Village Industries Commission is participating in the 42nd India International Trade Fair at New Delhi. Khadi India Pavilion in Trade Fair reflects the theme of Vocal for Local, displaying a wide range of products of New India's new Khadi. DD India's Kriti Vadhera reports.
Minister for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Narayan Rane inaugurated Khadi India Pavilion at the India International Trade Fair. A glimpse of the products of New Khadi of New India has been presented through 214 stalls in the Khadi India Pavilion. Khadi India Pavilion is showcasing the products manufactured by skilled artisans of the country and also to promote the initiative of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Vocal for Local and Self-Reliant India.
हमारे माननीय पंतप्रधान नरेंद्र मोदी जी खादी को बढ़ावा दे रहे हैं। जो अब पहले की खादी अभी तो अलग-अलग फैशन में, डिजाइन में खादी आ रही है और यूथ लाइक कर रहे हैं।
In this pavilion, the artisans of the country have been provided a momentous platform to exhibit their art.
देश में उद्योग बढ़ने के लिए, प्रोडक्शन बढ़ने के लिए, जीडीपी बढ़ने के लिए ये मेला का उपयोग होगा। लोगों को जानकारी मिलेगी अलग-अलग प्रोडक्शन निकालने के लिए।
The government is appealing everyone to buy indigenous products so that millions of artisans associated with Khadi and village industries in rural areas get livelihood opportunities.
Right from the freedom struggle, Khadi has become a national icon for Indians. Khadi still prevails to empower Indians through the employment it is providing to the local artisans in rural areas, and government is not leaving any stone unturned to become vocal for its local artisans. With camera person Radhe Krishna, I am Kriti Vadhera reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
And the efforts to evacuate 40 trapped construction workers in a tunnel in northern Indian state of Uttarakhand have entered its 7th day. Some progress has been seen as a heavy-duty drilling machine penetrated 24 meters of rubble on the Char Dham route. The authorities have intensified the operation. An additional auger machine has been airlifted from Indore. The backup machine is expected to arrive at the accident site by Saturday. The new machine can drill at the speed of 5 meters per hour. The trapped workers have light and receive oxygen, food, water and medicines via pipe and can communicate via walkie-talkie. The men have been stuck in the hillside tunnel in Uttarakhand state since Sunday morning after it caved in, but are safe, the authorities say. All right, for more information on this, DD India's Om Prakash Yadav is joining us from Uttarkashi. Om Prakash ji, क्या स्थिति है अभी? रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन का 7वां दिन अभी है, उनको बचाने के लिए प्रशासन भी दिन रात एक कर रहा है. अभी लेटेस्ट आप क्या बता सकते हैं हमें?
जी, ये देवभूमि उत्तराखंड के उत्तरकाशी जिले के गंगोत्री यमुनोत्री राष्ट्रीय राजमार्ग 134 पर सिलक्यारा एक गांव है, जहां पर बीते 4.5 साल से एक टनल का निर्माण कार्य जारी था और उसका तकरीबन 70% काम हो गया था. मात्र 400 मीटर की टनल बाकी थी. उसी दौरान रविवार भोर सुबह एक मलबा दबने से इस टनल में हादसा हुआ और तकरीबन 40 मजदूर इसमें फंस गए. उसके बाद लगातार बचाव और राहत के कार्य जारी रहे और 13 तारीख को यहां पर देहरादून से एक ड्रिलिंग मशीन लाई गई, जिसने यहां काम करना शुरू किया. लेकिन यह हार्ड सिल्क होने की वजह से और जो स्टोन मोटा होने की वजह से काम नहीं कर पाई. तो बाद में 15 तारीख को एक अमेरिकन टेक्नोलॉजी पर आधारित ऑगर मशीन विशेष तौर से हरकुलस विमान के जरिए मंगवाई गई थी. उस मशीन ने 16 तारीख को काम करना शुरू किया और कल शाम 4 बजे तक इस मशीन ने तकरीबन 22 मीटर तक का ड्रिलिंग कर लिया था. लेकिन यहाँ पे बोल्ड स्टोन आने की वजह से बीच बीच में बाधा आने लग गई और ये काम थोड़ा बाधित होने लग गया. इसके अलावा ये जो मशीन, जो हाई ड्रिलिंग मशीन है, ये 1750 हॉर्स पावर की है, जो काम करती है तो टनल में कंपन होता है और उससे कहीं ना कहीं जो एक्सपर्ट्स है, मजदूर है, इंजीनियर है, उनको ऐसा डाउट है कि कहीं मलबा फिर से न गिर जाए, इसलिए बीच बीच में इस मशीन को रोकना भी पड़ता है. इसके अलावा जो ये मशीन है डीजल से चलाई जा रही, तो डीजल की वजह से वहाँ पॉल्यूशन हो जाता है, तो काम करने में थोड़ी दिक्कत आती है. श्वास लेने में इंजीनियर्स और कर्मचारियों को दिक्कत आती है. इस वजह से पॉल्यूशन फ्री करने के लिए भी इसको रोका जाता है. इसके साथ ही साथ ये तीव्र गति से काम हो रहा है, बहुत ही हाई डेंसिटी वर्क काम यहाँ हो रहा है. और यहाँ हार्ड स्टोन है, जो स्टोन है वो बहुत ही कठोर होता है, तो उसको जब ड्रिलिंग करते हैं तो उस वजह से मशीन में काफ़ी सारी दिक्कत आती है और उसकी जो बीरिंग है उनको भी बीच बीच में चेंज करना पड़ता है. तो बहुत सारी दिक्कतें आने की वजह से इसमें काम का जो स्पीड है वो थोड़ा कम हो गया. हालांकि ये मशीन 6 मीटर प्रति आवर के हिसाब से ड्रिलिंग करती है. इसकी टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत एडवांस है, लेकिन जिस तरह की संवेदनशीलता है, मामले की गंभीरता, उसको देखते हुए और जो जटिल और विपरीत परिस्थितियां उसकी वजह से मात्र 1 घंटे में 1 ही मीटर का काम कर पा रही. तो यही वजह है कि 2 दिन लगातार काम करने के बाद भी इसमें मात्र 22 मीटर की ड्रिलिंग हुई और 24 मीटर जो पाइप 900 mm के इसमें डाले गए. और अभी इसी को एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी को आगे बढ़ाते हुए बैकअप के तौर पे एक इंदौर से दूसरी एक और एडवांस मशीन मंगवाई जा रही है, जो आज इसके पहुंचने की संभावनाएं हैं. इसके अलावा जो 40 मजदूर फंसे हैं उसके लिए प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी, केंद्रीय गृह मंत्री और राज्य प्रशासन द्वारा लगातार आपदा राहत के कार्य और नियंत्रण कक्ष बनाकर काम किया जा रहा है. यही वजह है कि यहाँ NDRF, SDRF और आपदा बल के अलावा मेडिकल, पुलिस और अन्य तरह की टीमें तैनात है, जो किसी भी विपरीत परिस्थिति से निपटने के लिए अपने आप को मेकअप मोड में रखी हुई है. लेकिन इसमें जो काम की गति है वो बहुत धीमी है और इसकी मुख्य वजह यह है कि ये जो हिमालय हैं, जो दुनिया भर के हिमालय को हम देखते हो तो ये युवा और बड़े नाजुक हिमालय माने जाते हैं, तो इनमें काम करना थोड़ा चैलेंजिंग होता है. और यही वजह है कि ये थोड़ा काम की रफ्तार थोड़ी ढीली है, लेकिन इसको निश्चित तौर पर उम्मीद की जाती है कि समय पर आगे इन मजदूरों को सकुशल निकाल लिया जाएगा और इनके स्वास्थ्य की जाँच, इनको खाने पीने, इनको ऑक्सीजन की सप्लाई करने जैसे तमाम कार्य यहाँ पर लगातार किए जा रहे हैं. और अभी तक सभी मजदूर सकुशल है. उनके जो परिजन आए हुए हैं उनसे भी लगातार वॉकी टॉकी और पाइप के जरिए बातचीत करवाई जा रही है, ताकि उनको किसी तरह की चिंता न हो और मजदूरों के स्वास्थ्य का भी ख्याल रखा जा रहा है. तो निश्चित तौर पर यह मामला बहुत पेचीदा है और स्थिति बहुत संवेदनशील है. लेकिन जिस तरह से सरकार, राज्य और केंद्र सरकार ने सतत प्रयास किए, उससे उम्मीद है कि इनको जल्द सकुशल बाहर निकाल लिया जाएगा. जी
ओम प्रकाश, जैसा आपने कहा कि मामला बहुत पेचीदा है और संवेदनशील है, लेकिन कब तक उम्मीद है कि सफलता मिल जाएगी?
जी, ये जो टनल है इसमें तकरीबन 200 मीटर अंदर जाते ही जहाँ पर ये मलबा ढहा है वो बिल्कुल थोड़ा सॉफ्ट रॉक है. और ये इस तरह की सॉफ्ट रॉक में जब भी टनल में काम किया जाता है तो एक जोन बनाकर टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट काम करते हैं, लेकिन उस जोन में जो रिपोर्ट तैयार की जाती है, पहले की जो रिपोर्ट होती है उसमें जो सिचुएशन के अनुसार चेंजिंग होते रहते हैं. तो यही वजह कि इसमें कई सारे ऑप्शंस को लेकर ये काम कर रहे हैं. उन्होंने टनल के साइड में भी कल भूगर्भ वैज्ञानिकों की एक टीम दिल्ली से आई थी, वो अलग से ऑप्शन तैयार कर रही थी कि साइड से हम ऐसा कोई मैकेनिज्म तैयार करें जिससे मजदूरों को निकाला जा सके, या इसी टनल के जरिए हम निकालेंगे तो किस तरह हमें निकालना है. तो इसमें बचाव और राहत कार्य को जितना तेजी से आगे बढ़ाया जा रहा है उतनी इसमें संवेदनशीलता भी ध्यान में रखी जा रही है। लेकिन उम्मीद की जाती है कि जैसे अभी 22 मीटर तक की ये ड्रिलिंग हो गई है और कुल 60 से 70 मीटर की दूरी अभी बाकी है, तो उम्मीद की जाती है कि 36 मीटर तक का अभी मामला बाकी है। तो इसमें तकरीबन कुल 12 पाइप लगेंगे जो 6 मीटर के और 900 mm की साइज के हैं, तो बाकी पाइप को भी धीरे धीरे लगा लिया जाएगा। लेकिन आज जो मशीन आ जाएगी इंदौर से, उसके बाद इसकी कार्य में न केवल गति आएगी बल्कि पाइप को ड्रिलिंग करने में भी आसानी होगी। लेकिन इसमें मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि जो मलबा दबा हुआ है उसमें एक तो हार्ड स्टोन पड़े हुए हैं, बोल्डिंग स्टोन जिनको हम बोलते हैं पहाड़ के, तो उनको काटने में बहुत दिक्कत आती है। दूसरी समस्या ये है कि इस मलबे के नीचे कुछ मशीनें भी दबी हुई हैं जो काम करने के दौरान वहाँ पर पदस्थापित की गई थी और उनका इंस्टॉलेशन चल रहा था, तो वो मशीनें आएंगी तो उनको अलग से वेल्डिंग कटर से काटा जाएगा, तो उसमें भी चेकिंग का काम होगा। तो उम्मीद की जाती है
नजर आप बनाए रखिए,
रफ्तार पकड़ेगा लेकिन टाइम लगेगा।
हम आपसे लेते रहेंगे। That was Om Prakash Yadav giving us updates from Uttarakhand. Moving on to our next story now. Under Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, Hamara Sankalp Viksit Bharat program was organized in Simdega district in the Indian state of Jharkhand. The objective of this Sankalp Yatra is to extend the benefits of various welfare schemes of the Government of India to the general public. The program witnessed great enthusiasm among the locals participating in the program. The people present during the program took a pledge to make India a self-reliant and developed nation by the year 2047. During the program, successful beneficiaries of various schemes shared their experiences under Meri Kahani, Meri Zubani, and expressed their gratitude to the Prime Minister of India for this initiative. A quiz competition and other interesting plays were also organized. And Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, launched by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 15th November, saw a huge participation in Khunti district of India's Jharkhand. During the program, the Sankalp Yatra vehicle travelled to various parts of the district. A large number of people gathered to listen to the information being given and also shared the benefits they received through various schemes. During this period, a health checkup camp and the registration of new beneficiaries under Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana were also organized. All right, now let's take a look at other stories making news. The air quality in the capital of India, Delhi, is in very poor category. On Saturday morning, the air quality index stood at 398. After 3 days of remaining in the severe category, Delhi's air quality index showed a slight improvement as it entered the very poor category on Saturday. The Election Commission of India provides a facility of home voting to senior citizens aged 80 and above and those with 40% disabilities to cast their vote from home using the home voting facility. A polling team comprised of 2 polling officials with a videographer and security person visit the elector's house and get the elector to vote on the postal ballot, maintaining complete secrecy of the vote. The Durga Battalion of the Indian Army organized a girls' hockey tournament in Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir in connection with the 76th upcoming Poonch Link-Up Day. The tournament was held at the sports stadium in Poonch region of Jammu and saw the participation of various girls' hockey teams from the region. And the much-awaited Indian festival of Chhath Puja is being celebrated with religious fervour. Today is the second day, which is known as Kharna. After performing puja this evening, devotees will observe a waterless fast for 36 hours. As per Indian mythology, Chhath Puja festival is dedicated to the sun god and his sister Chhati Maiya, the daughter of Lord Brahma. All right, time now for another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. ChatGPT company OpenAI sacks its CEO. Another day, another record for tennis star Rohan Bopanna. And world-renowned sand artist Doordarshan Patnaik creates 56-feet World Cup trophy to wish Team India for finals, where we tell you later.
to a happy place. To nature's warm embrace. Witness the power of faith, fruits of hard work, and protectors of Mother Earth. Unique in every way. Discover something new every day. A small state with big ambitions. And a bigger heart. Mizoram welcomes to love, laughter, and celebrations.
Welcome back. You're watching DDN News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Just hours after ChatGPT maker OpenAI CEO Sam Altman was ousted by the company's board, the news came that the company's co-founder and president Greg Brockman would also be quitting the role. Brockman announced his departure on X. This is what he posted. OpenAI earlier also announced that Brockman was supposed to step down from the board's chairman role. Earlier, for Sam Altman, the company said that the board lost confidence in Altman's ability to lead. It was also told that OpenAI's chief technology officer, Meera Murati, will now serve as interim CEO, adding that it will conduct a formal search for a permanent CEO. After joining OpenAI in 2018 as the vice president of its AI and partnerships, Meera was promoted to senior vice president of research, product and partnerships in 2020. She took over as OpenAI's chief technology officer in 2022. An International Monetary Fund Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, has said the meeting between US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping is a badly needed signal that the world needs to cooperate more. Biden and Xi agreed on Wednesday to open a presidential hotline, resume military-to-military communications, and work to curb fentanyl production, showing tangible progress in their first face-to-face talks in a year.
It sends a signal to the rest of the world that we must find ways to cooperate on those challenges where no country on its own can succeed. And it is important at a time when geo-economic fragmentation has indeed deepened, with negative consequences for the prospects for accelerating growth. We see two very important outcomes of this meeting. The first one is just the signaling effect it has. And I heard it in the room, I heard it in the corridors. It is received very positively. And the second is discussing some of the most pressing issues, especially climate, given that we are now days away from the start of COP28, reinvigorating a sense of urgency to work together is certainly very timely and very important.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for sports updates. We'll start with tennis. Rohan Bopanna becomes the oldest player ever to reach the semi-finals of the ATP World Tour Finals. Bopanna and partner Matthew Ebden beat reigning Wimbledon champion Niels Skupski and Wesley Koolhof 6-4, 7-5 to advance to the last four stage. Incidentally, Rohan and Ebden had beaten the same opponents to win the Indian Wells title this year, which made Bopanna the oldest ATP Masters champion at 43. And India will face Australia in the final of the ICC Cricket World Cup after the latter beat South Africa by 3 wickets in the second semi-final at the Eden Gardens. Let's take a look at India's journey in the tournament so far.
Armed with a formidable batting unit and a strong bowling attack, India have stormed into the first World Cup final in 12 years after winning 10 games on the trot. The latest being a 70-run win over New Zealand in a thriller at the Wankhede Stadium. Here is a look at India's unbeaten journey into the World Cup final. Match 1, October 8, 2023. India versus Australia. India won by 6 wickets with 52 balls remaining. Match 2, October 11, 2023. India versus Afghanistan. India won by 8 wickets with 90 balls remaining. Match 3, October 14, 2023. India versus Pakistan. India won by 7 wickets with 117 balls remaining. Match 4, October 19, 2023. India versus Bangladesh. India won by 7 wickets with 51 balls remaining. Match 5, October 2023. India versus New Zealand. India won by 4 wickets with 12 balls remaining. Match 6, October 29, 2023. India versus England. India won by 100 runs. Match 7, November 2, 2023. India versus Sri Lanka. India won by 302 runs. Match 8, November 5, 2023. India versus South Africa. India won by 243 runs. Match 9, November 12, 2023. India versus Netherlands. India won by 160 runs. Match 10, November 15, 2023. Semi-final, India versus New Zealand. India won by 70 runs in Mumbai. Sports Desk, DD India.
And streets outside Narendra Modi Stadium transformed into a sea of blue as Indian fans get up for the epic clash between India and Australia. The air is electric with anticipation and cricket merchandise flying off the shelves. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya brings us more from the ground.
It's the carnival atmosphere outside this Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, where the final between India and Australia is going to take place. And as I mentioned, it's a carnival atmosphere, so it is but obvious that the stage is set and there are a lot of people who are here to witness this epic clash. And these merchandise are getting sold off like a jiffy. You see these t-shirts, you see these caps, and there are people who are buying this. So कौन सा सबसे ज़्यादा बिक रहा है? विराट और रोहित शर्मा और कोई? धोनी का भी है. Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, MS Dhoni. Although MS Dhoni has retired from international cricket, but his craze is still very much evident here. As you can see, this whole road is lined up with all this merchandise. This is one of the caps. There's another kind of caps they have posted here, and these t-shirts. As I mentioned, it comes in all kind of sizes. So India is favorite, and there are a lot of people who are coming here to buy Indian t-shirts. But Australia is also quite popular. As you see, Steve Smith's t-shirt is also out here, and they are making a beeline. So the whole road from outside this whole stadium is kind of lined up with all these people who are selling the merchandise out here, and these are ranging from 150 to 200 rupees, and it's these kind of merchandise is actually selling off like a hot cake in this particular before this particular match. As I mentioned, this is a summit clash, and before this match everybody is gearing up to witness history in the making. India last time won the World Cup way back in 2011. They missed out in 2019. They got out of in 2019. But this time they have a chance to create history against Australia. And on Sunday, they will be hoping to do exactly that. With the person Mukesh Shukla, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for GD India from Ahmedabad's Narendra Modi Stadium.
And renowned Indian sand artist Doordarshan Patnaik has created a sand sculpture of a 56 feet long Cricket World Cup trophy with the message "Good luck Team India" at Puri Beach in Indian state of Odisha. India is set to face Australia team in the final showdown match in the World Cup at Ahmedabad's Narendra Modi Stadium on Sunday. ATP Finals. Alexander Zverev has finished his 2023 season with a victory, beating Andrei Rublev 6-4, 6-4 in the final group match of this year's ATP Finals. The German improved his head-to-head record against Rublev to 6-3, while also condemning the Russian to 3 losses from 3 matches at the ATP Finals. Rublev therefore finished bottom of the group, while Zverev was third. The German was unlucky not to reach the last 4 after 2 wins from 3 matches in Turin, including a hugely impressive opening victory over Alcaraz at the start of the week. But it was his failure to win a set against Medvedev that proved decisive, as the world number 3 stuck through to the semi-finals on the set difference. Alright, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Insta. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.